everyone, welcome back to my vlog. I'm Ramen, or A Hobbit's Reading List. This week we're going to be in New York, and I can feel my dad recording me. Everyone say hi to my dad. You're gonna see him a lot this week, unfortunately.
What the hell?
This week we'll be going to New York, so there probably won't be a ton of reading going on, but there will be a ton of libraries and bookshops as well as museums. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. So Dad and I woke up at like 3 a.m. to get to the airport by 4 because our flight was at 6. And I mention that because it is now 10 o'clock at night and we're very tired. I'm just not used to
I didn't do anything.
I'm not used to people being around me when I'm doing this. It's so much more embarrassing. You'll have seen clips from my day. So we went to the public library, which had less books than I was expecting. And if there were books, they were in places that we couldn't go to, which kind of sucked, but the building's really pretty. And then we went to Grand Central Terminal, which I believe I also took some clips of. And I dragged my dad to a bookstore. It was unplanned, but we had time. And I did end up getting books because, of course, I did. I will admit, I mainly bought these books because I felt guilty because they didn't have any fiction books that I wanted, but we were in there for about, like, 40 minutes because we had, like, a reservation for the next thing that we were doing. So we kind of killed time in there. So I ended up buying some books to make myself feel better, like I wasn't freeloading. So I got Golden Age Cocktails, which is about the development and history of cocktails in the Gilded Age. And then I got Antiquity in Gotham, which is about architecture in New York City, because I am really into architecture, and if I could actually do math, I probably would have tried to become an architect. But I can't do math, so I just read about architecture instead. And then we went to Top of the Rock, which is an observation deck in Rockefeller Center. And then we went to dinner, and then we went and saw Chicago, which was very good. I was very impressed by the dancing. And now I'm very tired, and we're going to at least one bookstore tomorrow. I think we're going to a bookstore and a library museum. So there will be more book content tomorrow. Good morning. I was too tired to vlog last night, so I didn't get to tell you all the books that I got. We ended up going to 2 bookstores. One of them was planned, one of them wasn't. And I got 2 books at each because apparently that's my magic number. You'll have seen clips of everything that we did, so I'm just gonna focus on the bookish content. But we went to Albertine Books, which is a bookstore specializing in mainly French books. They have some French literature that has been translated into English, which is what I got. I didn't tell my dad that the bookstore is primarily French, so he apparently felt very betrayed because he was apparently in a book buying mood yesterday, and I took him to a bookstore where he couldn't buy any books. Although I maintain he could have bought a French to English book, but he didn't. I mean, he could have. So both of the books that I got at Albertine are focused on World War II and the Holocaust. The first one is Occupation Journal by Giono? I don't know how you pronounce the G's in French, so terribly sorry. So Occupation Journal it's exactly what it says. It's a journal of an occupation during the Holocaust.
Oh, okay. It's how did they know what it said?
Because that's what it's called. And so it sounded really interesting. It sounded really descriptive. And it says that he talks about life and art and philosophy while also keeping track of the dead around him and describing the scenery. And I thought it was just something that I think enjoy is the wrong word, but I think would be really interesting to read. I was trying really hard to not say interesting because I say it a lot, but I have no other word to describe my
Intriguing.
Intriguing is a good word. I'll use intriguing. I'm gonna leave this whole clip in.
Oh God.
The second book I got from Albertine was A Bag of Marbles by Joffo. This is also a recounting of the author's time during World War II. It's him and his brother escaping, going to the temp by essentially road tripping across Europe, but not nearly as fun. So, again, another really intriguing read. I can't say that I'm excited to read these because they're probably going to be really hard. Although I think Bag of Marbles, some of the reviews said that it would be a good book for kids to read so that they can see or they can learn about the experiences of World War II without anything being too graphic. So it's probably so heartbreaking, quite honestly. So the second bookstore that we went to was The Strand. It wasn't on our list because I didn't think that we would have time to make it there, but we ended up cutting out something that wasn't necessarily super exciting so that we could go to The Strand before the Morgan Museum yesterday. So I got Gates of Shabbat by the CCAR, which is the Central Conference of American Rabbis. You can see there. And it's pretty much written from a reform lens about the different ways that you can keep Shabbat. Keeping Shabbat is something that I've been getting more and more curious about. I don't know if I'll ever be full-blown Shomer Shabbos. I just don't think that would work with my lifestyle. But I have been making Shabbat dinners most Fridays. I've been putting my phone to the side a little bit more. So I thought it was just really interesting to see how I could potentially keep a better Shabbat. And it also has a lot of the different prayers and the different like this one is the meaning of the meaning of mitzvah. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. And then the last book that I got yesterday and the second book that I got at the Strand is Just by Looking at Him by Ryan O'Connell. I hadn't heard of this book until I think about a week ago. Jack Edwards posted a video where he had read it and he had really loved it. And while I trust Jack's taste, our tastes sort of differ. Every book that I read that he has also read, because I follow him on Storygraph, our ratings are wildly different. So I will be very curious to see how I like this book. So Just by Looking at Him is about a 35-year-old TV writer who has cerebral palsy and a seemingly pretty stable life, but he feels like something's missing, and so he hires a sex worker, and this becomes another form of escapism for him, and he has to presumably figure out how to be content and happy with his life without all these different forms of escapism. And so I thought it sounded really interesting and really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much I enjoy it. So we're going to leave soon. I think we have one bookstore on the plan for today, which is the drama bookstore. This is our like show day. We've seen shows every day, but we're seeing 2 today. So we're not gonna have a ton of walking around, which will be nice. My legs really hurt, and my feet primarily. But so I think that's our only bookish plan, is the bookstore in between the shows. So let's just go ahead and get started with today then. I think it's safe to say that I'm not reading during this vacation because it's Thursday and our last day in New York and I haven't read. So I think it's highly unlikely I'll be reading today. However, I have purchased more books because reading and buying books are 2 separate hobbies, and at least I can partake in one of them. So I have content for this channel. Yesterday, in between 2 of the Broadway shows that we went to the drama bookshop, which is specializing in books on like writing, acting, as well as having the full screenplays of plays and musicals. So it was really cool. I actually didn't expect to buy things while I was there. It was just more of a, oh, this seems really interesting, but I bought 4 things. So as always, my expectation is very different from the reality. So I'm just gonna go through. I got The Hobbit by Tolkien, but was adapted into a screenplay by Patricia Gray. This is for a cast of approximately 26 with simple sets. There was another edition of The Hobbit, but it was set for a cast of 6, and I felt like that was just wrong, because that means that some of the company members were cut out or are played by 2 separate people, so therefore the full company couldn't be on stage at once. It just bothered me. So I thought that this would be a really sort of cool thing to see The Hobbit in play form. I bought A Midsummer's Night Dream by Shakespeare. I really like this style of screenplay, especially for Shakespeare, because on the opposite page it has all sorts of notes and explanations of like words that aren't in popular usage anymore explained, which is very nice because sometimes Shakespeare can be a little convoluted and hard to understand, and I like having additional context. I also got In the Next Room, or The Vibrator Play by Sarah Ruhl. This is a play about the man who created the vibrator and how it was used to cure hysteria. and his wife, who is in the next room, who has no idea what is happening and is very confused. I just thought it looked really interesting, and I'm honestly very excited to read it. And then lastly, I got An Ideal Husband by Oscar Wilde. This is just the screenplay, but it's all about, you know, a husband who's caught up in like blackmail and political intrigue, and how his wife copes with it, and what his wife sort of thinks about it. So I thought it was really interesting. And the back of the book talks about how like people still aren't sure whether it was like, yeah, if it was satire or if it was really about like politics at all. And so it just seems really cool. And I've read some Oscar Wilde this year, and I would like to read more just beyond like Dorian Gray. So those are the books that I bought yesterday. So I'm now up to 10 books purchased in New York. We are going to a bookstore today, but I think just one, I believe. But we are going to a fair amount of museums, and I also buy books at museums because I like learning. So it's very possible I will buy more books today. My dad and I have, not a bet because we have no stakes, but we have guesses of how many books I'm going to end up buying this week. And my guess was 15. And I think, didn't you guess 6?
Yeah, I totally blown out of the water already.
Yeah, my dad's already lost because he thought I was only going to buy 6. That's adorable. Yeah, no, I knew it was going to be in double digits. So today we're going to Brooklyn for the morning, and then going to some museums in the afternoon, and then we're seeing Louberger tonight, which is very exciting. And I will hopefully film another clip when we get back.
You'll never make back your money.
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about because I haven't filmed a clip since Thursday morning, I think. Thursday, we went to Brooklyn. We went to the Bookstore Magic bookstore, which is actually owned by Emma Straub, who is an author. She's also the daughter of Peter Straub, who is also an author. And so that was really cool to go to a bookstore owned by authors, and it was just a really awesome bookstore. I highly recommend, if you're in Brooklyn or visiting Brooklyn, like definitely check out Bookstore Magic. And that was the only bookstore that my dad actually bought books at, which I find very funny. And I got 5 books. So let's go through those before I get to the rest of the day. So this one my dad actually found for me. So he found Vagina Obscura and Anatomical Voyage. I'm going to cut it out, but just so you know, I really struggled with that. And this is by Rachel Gross. It seems really cool. And it's all about the different research that has come out about the vulva, the vagina, the uterus, all of, women's special body parts, and what new things we're learning about them. And so it seemed really cool the way that it was presented. And I think it'll be good to read and good to get more knowledge about something that, like, admittedly has not been highly researched up until about 150 years ago. Like, it's just a good thing to know. So I think this will be really cool. I also picked up The Subterraneans by Jack Kerouac. I really like Jack Kerouac, and this is another thing where it's like, I have a lot of booktubers that I watch that I really look up to, and I really value their opinions, but sometimes our opinions highly differ. And I know Jack Edwards recently did a video where he read On the Road, which is one of my favorite novels, and he gave it like a 3-star, and he said it was kind of like boring and that you could tell that Jack Kerouac wrote it in 3 weeks, which, like, you definitely can. And so, like, while Jack Edwards's opinions are totally accurate. Like, I could not disagree with him. But there's a sentimentality about reading Jack Kerouac and the way that Jack Kerouac structures his word choices, and even if he writes them in a fever pitch over the span of 3 days like he did with the Subterraneans, I still think he's a really amazing author, and I just really like all the beats, really. So I was really glad to see this in the store, and so I had to pick it up. And this one has been on my wish list, I guess, for when did I read Jane Eyre? Since October. I think I read Jane Eyre in October, and so I think this has been on my wish list since then. So it's White Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. I don't know how French this is, but pretty much after I read Jane Eyre, I had talked to one of my friends and said that I wish I knew more about Bertha's history. I believe her name is Bertha, the wife in the attic, the insane wife in the attic. That I wish I knew more about her because she was the really interesting part, and so I wanted more information. And my friend recommended this book, which this gives sort of, it's from the wife in the attic's perspective. It's her story pretty much, and I thought it sounded really cool, and I was really happy to see it in the store, and so I of course had to pick it up. And I'm really looking forward to reading it because it's been something I've actively wanted to read since I read Jane Eyre, and I just haven't. I don't tend to order books from Amazon. Like it's on my Amazon wish list so that I know that I want it. So, and this was the first time I'd seen it in a bookstore, so very happy about that. And then I also got the Wisteria Society for Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. I just thought this sounded really cool, and the cover's so pretty. And honestly, I picked up the sequel first, but once I realized that it was in the series, I went ahead and grabbed this one. And this is about ladies in the Victorian age who are also scoundrels. Specifically, Cecelia is a thief. Cecelia is the main character. She has a love interest named Ned, who is an assassin who has been sent to kill her, but he finds her fascinating. And they end up having to team up to save the women who raised Cecelia. And Cecelia wants to also prove that she's, she can be as much of a scoundrel as a man. So, I don't know. I think this just seems really fun. Quite honestly, it seemed really fun. It grabbed my attention, and yeah, I want to read it. So it's definitely on my list, and I'll hopefully get to it soon. And then the last one, so my dad remarked that there were like 2 bookstores where I only bought 2 things, and he was like, what? Especially at, I believe it was the Strand. I only bought, I wanted to say like 2 books at the Strand, which was surprising. And I said that it was because I was in the mood for something particular, and what that was actually Sandman. So I've been reading Sandman fanfiction, and pretty much when I was in New York, that was what I was reading when we were like out and about, because for me fanfiction is really easy to just like pick up randomly. Like I don't need to have like a stopping point. I can just like go back into it and leave it just willy-nilly. Whereas with actual books, I want to read it like chapter by chapter. I only want to stop after a chapter ends. So that makes it hard for me to just like dip back into it. So I'm reading Sandman fanfiction, which means that I've been wanting to read the Sandman comics again. I've read I think I've read a quarter of them, and I have like 6 volumes in my library upstairs, which of course are a completely different edition than this. So this is a full-blown book. Mine are like little bound volumes. But, and so originally I wasn't going to buy this, but see, this is signed. And I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it's signed, so I couldn't not get it, quite honestly. So I'll have to change the the Sandman comics that I'm collecting, because originally I was trying to get all the 30th anniversary ones, which match the ones I have upstairs, but now I guess I'll just have to get these, which I'm okay with. So, and these are actually like, I think this picks up almost right where my ones upstairs leave off. So I'll be able to read new stories that I haven't read before. So that's really cool. That brings my total for New York City to 15 books, which is actually what I guessed that I would get. My dad, silly man, thought I would only get 6. And I thought that was adorable. Like, I brought an entire empty duffel bag with me to New York because I knew I would end up buying more books than I could fit in my suitcase. And so I put all my dirty clothes in the duffel bag and put all the books in my suitcase so that they wouldn't get damaged. And also so I didn't have to carry 15 books around the airport because I just checked that bag. So that brings us, so after the bookstore, we went to the Transit Museum, and then we left Brooklyn, went to the Skyscraper Museum, and then the Museum of Jewish Heritage, or Jewish Heritage Museum, either one. And then after that, we went to dinner, and we went to the Lou Burger show, which was super cool. Super glad that we went. Hope you enjoyed the clips that I included. And then Friday morning, we left. I finished Babel on the plane. I only had like an hour left, so it ended well. It did not end happily, as I predicted. So I ended up giving it a 4-star because I think I mentioned in like last week's vlog or the vlog before that like Robin made a choice to agree to help Hermes at the like very beginning, like 30% in, but it's not really explained why. He's just like, he's not given a ton of information, and then he just agrees to help them, and that really bothered me. I was hoping it would get explained at some point, and it didn't. And so it was just like, so many of Robin's choices made sense and or were informed by his fear. Neither explanation explains why he agreed to help Hermes after like a 10-minute meeting. So that part really bothered me, and it stuck with me clearly to cost it a full star. Because like the other parts that I didn't enjoy, which like there weren't many, I thought it was very well written. I thought the plot was really interesting. I thought the relationships were really interesting. I thought the characters were well rounded. I thought it made sense. Like, it drew me in. I had a high intrigue, except for when I was in New York, obviously, because I didn't pick it up again. But I was very invested. But just that, I guess that early choice really stuck with me, because I'm like, it's just not explained, and even though it was necessary to make the plot happen, it felt out of character for what I knew and now know of Robin. So yeah, I still highly recommend it. I still think it's a really good book, really fascinating, made me like think about things in a little bit of a different way, which is why I think you're supposed to walk away from a book like that just sort of like re-examining life maybe a little bit. But yeah, it was just that choice at the beginning. I was like, but it doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. So yeah, so I gave it a 4-star. Still highly recommend. Since I had like another hour on the plane, so I went ahead and started reading the second mango. I know I'm not going to finish my TBR for March. Like, I already had Dad pick out the punishment because there's no way I'm gonna finish. Even if I read all the short books on my list, I still have Wolf Song and The Body Keeps the Score, both of which are, I think, over 500 pages. So there's no way in the week that's left that I'm finishing. That's fine. But I went ahead and started reading the second mango. I'm about a quarter of the way through, and I'll keep reading it tonight because we're going over to a friend's house to watch March Madness, and I don't like basketball, so I'll read during that. But I'm going to be social as I read a book while they watch basketball. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Oh well. But so it's can I just say what a huge tonal shift it was, like finishing Babel, especially the way it ended, and then picking up the second mango, which is about a queen in this fantasy land who is searching for another woman who loves women. It's not something that is widely accepted in the kingdom, even though she's the queen. And she ends up teaming up with this other woman named Rivka, who is masquerading as a man so that she is allowed to be a soldier. However, Rivka is straight. It's said that she's straight, although I don't... I'm predicting that that's not going to stay. I don't know. And I don't know how I feel about that if it does change. Like, obviously people can change and realize things, and demisexuality is a thing, but it's like Rivka straight up says, like, I was in love with a man and he died and I'm not interested in women like you are. And so I'm just like, so I don't know what's gonna happen, because me being a romance reader, I expect them to end up together, but apparently they won't, and like that's fine. But I'm just like, well, then what's gonna happen? Like I feel like I'm going in blind. But anyway, it's a tonal shift because the second mango is very cute. It's very cute. It's like there's some, you know, heavier emotions, heavier themes. Like Shulamit is the queen and she's grieving the loss of her father who died like 2 months ago. And also feeling very lonely and stuff. And so there's heavier themes, but like overall it's just cute and it's fun to read, you know, which is good after Babel because that was very heavy. But like I said, just a hard shift to do in the space of like 20 minutes. So I will read more of that tonight, and then yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this vlog up. It's Sunday evening. Last night, like I said, we went over to a friend's house to watch basketball, so I brought a book. I did end up finishing The Second Mango by Shira Glassman. I ended up giving it a 4-star. It had some twists. So, like I said yesterday, one of the protagonists, Rivka, is a straight woman masquerading as a man so that she can be a warrior. And she is protecting Shulamit, who is on a quest to find another woman who loves women. And I said yesterday that I didn't know what was going to happen there. I didn't know how it was going to end up because I was predicting that Rivka and Shulamit would end up together. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I was happy with how it ended. Once I could see where it was going, I think it got a little predictable, but I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was a cute, fun read. There was mistakes and there was some good logic and world building, and I just appreciated that it was, even though it was in this like fantasy land, it was still inherently Jewish. There's a lot of Yiddish in there. There's a lot about like Shabbat and rabbis and all this sort of stuff. And so it's really cool to see Judaism show up in fantasy so blatantly. Like, I know that there's some Jewish aspects in Tolkien, but it's only there if you know to look for it. And it's not super blatant, which is not surprising. Tolkien was a Catholic. He didn't know a ton about Judaism, but the bits that he knew, he worked in there with the dwarves. And so I just appreciate that, like, reading fantasy that is so blatantly Jewish, which made me really happy. I went ahead and asked Siri which book I should read next on my March TBR, even though I know I'm not going to finish the TBR. Like, I'm probably going to film the video like either tonight or tomorrow because I know I'm not going to finish it, so I might as well give myself time instead of trying to like film and edit it the day before it has to go up on Friday. So Siri told me to read The Body Keeps the Score, which was the last book I wanted her to pick. I had actually just gave up my hold on the audiobook on Libby because I had it on hold at 2 different libraries, and at one I was still 2 weeks out, and at the other one I was 9 weeks out. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna give them up. And then of course she picked that one, so I'm like, all right. So I read, I think, about 2 chapters today, just at my breaks at work. It's not as bad as I was expecting, quite honestly. Bessel van der Kolk is actually a really good nonfiction writer, and it's pulling me in despite the fact that it's nonfiction. So I was actually reading it fairly quickly. I just didn't have like a ton of time, so I might read more tonight. I'm enjoying it so far, but I've only read like 30 pages, so I will hopefully get that done next week by the 1st. Maybe. I would really like to just go ahead and start working on April's TBR, because March was rough. Like, it was super rough. I'm ready to be done with March reading wise. I had, some good things happen. I had some not so good things happen as well. But I think reading wise, I'm ready to just start a new month and hopefully get out of this slump because I really don't like being in slumps. It really sucks. So thank you for everyone who watched. I hope you enjoyed all the New York City content and the fact that I didn't really read much this week, but I did buy a lot of books. So that's something. And like the video, comment if any of the books that I bought this week seemed interesting, if you want to see me read them, if you've read them, what did you think? I would be really curious about that. And subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.